This is Casual Babble. Good morning, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the show. My name is BC Babbles, and you're enjoying Casual Babble, the Queen City's live-streamed morning show and podcast, coming to you from Race City, USA, as per the usual. Before we hop in, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell if you're on YouTube, and that way you're up to date and notified about all future content on the channel. And if you're enjoying the show on Podbean, give us a follow there, give us a share, and wherever you're enjoying the show, hop into the chat, say hello, and let us know where you're coming in from. So, before we start, and we're going to kind of stick to our the new usual, since for the last couple of weeks, but there's a difference now. So, you know that I do my 7 daily affirmations. Granted, I've not been great at making sure that when I'm not on the show doing them, that I'm doing them on my socials. I need to fix that, I know. But, so I had another conversation with a really good friend of mine. It's because, and you know that I mentioned a few weeks ago that I am trying to push my consultancy services as a content consultant. And, you know, a lot of times when you're doing that, even though you know it's been a position that you've been called to many times, a lot of times you're trying to figure out, you know, like, you kind of find yourself stuck in this mindset of, I want to be able to do these things. And what we don't realize is that it causes us to forget that we're already doing those things, right? So I sat down with my friend. Her name is Tracy Massey. She's a fantastic, she's a grief coach, and she's a fantastic up-and-coming, she's a great podcast host. Check out her show, The Charging Station. Great content there, great show there. I sat down with her, and she had me write out what it is I want to be able to do with my services, with my skills. And so she had me write them down, and then she went through the paragraph that I wrote out, and she crossed out certain phrases like want to be able to, want to think I can, like all these particular small phrases in the paragraph I wrote out about my goals that kept me in kind of a situational or not quite there mindset. Big Guy Cass hops into the Podbean chat, says, "What's up? How you doing, Cass?" Doing pretty well, man. Thank you for joining on the show this morning. And she crossed all those things out, and she had me rewrite the paragraph sans those particular points that she crossed out. And so I rewrote out the paragraph minus those words, and the paragraph suddenly was all about what I was already doing and what I am doing. And I didn't realize that I do that to myself. Like, I have these ambitions, I want to do these things, and the way I talk about them, the way that I am trying to get them going, the wording that I have in my head and on paper apparently, has me still very much in the not doing it yet mindset. And so her goal in that exercise was to help me recognize that I'm already doing it. Because let me see if I can find this thing here. I cannot, it's out of reach, but I would read it out to you if I had it on my person. But with that being said, that essentially means that there's a new daily affirmation out there that I have on my board in my room that I'm now using as my new day-to-day thing. So no more 7 affirmations, though the affirmations that I had were great. If you don't recall, they spoke about your ideas are meaningful, you are powerful, you will not be left behind because you will pave the way, you are beautiful, your beauty will transform you, you are inventive, all these great things. But I'm going to share with you now my new affirmation that I speak to myself. And remember, this affirmation is sans any words that suggest that I'm not yet doing these things that I had hoped to at some point be doing. So here we go. So the affirmation is this, and it's a little bit long, but stick with me here for a second. So it goes, I am able to create things that thrill people. I am able to understand someone's style, goal, and direction so well that I am able to become a trusted investment. And as I show these skills to others who also invest in me, those collective investments allow me to live freely and contently. That's my new affirmation. It talks about, because here's the thing, I've been consulting content for years, and I mentioned before, like even going back to college, people would call on me to help them figure out how to get past this wall that they hit in their production process, whether or not it was audio, whether or not it was video, and how could I help them get to the finish line? Or it was helping them figure out their planning style. How should they be methodical in planning out a project? Not just the post-production, but the pre-production, planning out the location, planning out the gear, planning out ultimately what they want their end result to be. And then the production process, being on location, making sure that you're recording with the right practices. They would come to me for that because I got it. When we were all learning it at the same time, I just got it so quickly, because that was really my calling there, was to be involved in those creative processes. And so I've been a content consultant since 2015. It's now 2022. And since college, I've been called on several times professionally, well, at least as a professional, to assist fellow content creators and upcoming podcast personalities and how to plan or produce their content. And so, but despite that, I kept speaking of my goals in such a way to suggest that I wasn't already doing those things, and failing to remember that if I wasn't already doing those things, then people wouldn't be coming to me for that assistance because they wouldn't even see that themselves. But they do see it, but I wasn't seeing it. So that's not the caveat, but that's the weird thing, isn't it? So, that's what I had to come in and stop doing. So I'm the practice for me now is to no longer, when speaking about my goals, is to no longer say, I hope to be able to do something, or I want to be able to do this. It's going to be that I do this. I've done that. I can do this. Not, even not even that I can do this, is that I just do this. I do this already. Again, I am able to create things that thrill people. Okay. And not to plug too much harder, but like when I was doing like audio projects for my audio production teacher, who has a doctorate in these things, and he has associates who work on like huge sets. He has associates who worked on the freaking Game of Thrones set. So this is a guy who's got connections and who knows his stuff. Whenever I was doing my audio projects for whatever it was, whether or not it was just like a radio thing or like a full-on final project, he would actually seek me out because he knew that I hung out in the radio station in the building where he taught his classes, and he would seek me out because he couldn't believe, based on the quality of the project I'd provide him, that I, still in audio production 1, beginner audio production class, was able to give him what I gave him. But I was, because from the get-go, that's what I understood, is how to provide that quality. And yet I allowed myself to kind of fall into this rut mentally of I don't know if I can do this yet. And I've been doing it for a decade. That makes no sense, right? That's so crazy. So yeah, that's what I learned. And that's the new practice for me. I do want to apologize for not being here for Monday. Your boy needed a break for whatever reason. Been working with a lot of interviews in the past week, and it's been a little taxing, to be honest, but some really fun prospects in lane for me. So I'm really excited to hear more about some of these great opportunities that I've been talking to people about. So fingers crossed for your boy so that he can get back into the Hygge studio, because God knows I miss it. I love being in that environment. So yeah, fingers crossed for him, for me, and getting me into the studio. once again. I see that Woody Bush hopped into the Podbean chat. Good morning, Woody. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, so let's get into some morning stuff here. Congratulations, by the way, on making it to Wednesday. You and I have discussed it many times before. Making it to Wednesday is not always a given. It can be troublesome. We've spoken about Mondays before, where sometimes the biggest question on a Monday is, am I going to go to work at all? And if it's not, am I going to go to work at all? The other question might be, what kind of coffee will I choose to allow me to actually function upon arrival at work? But you're at Wednesday, so congratulations. You made it to Wednesday. I'm so proud of you. And if no one else tells you today that they're proud that you made it to Wednesday, at least BC Babble's told you. I'm proud of you because you made it to Wednesday. I understand the struggle. 100%. Never let anyone tell you or try to undermine the struggle of just trying to make it to goddamn Wednesday, okay? Because apparently they don't know. Apparently they're somewhere else mentally. We're not all there yet. So congratulations. You made it to freaking Wednesday. I'm proud of you. Damn it. And no one can tell you otherwise. Period. No one can tell you otherwise. But yeah, let's hop into some discussions this morning. I do want to focus on some ideas here that can help give you some directions and regards to just being able to function, being kind of optimal when you're heading into the office, and what kind of things that can help you make the most use out of your skill set when you're going into really kind of any business. Let's see here. Trying to find some fun stuff in, we've all been hackling on the big Twitter news feed with the fiasco that Elon Musk has triggered for himself since he took over the social platform. Not seeing too much this morning through the Morning Brew, not sponsored by the way, but Morning Brew, let's talk about it. I did see something about Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried this morning, who apparently has been experiencing some pretty hardships of his own. So this is going to come from the Morning Brew morning newsletter. Again, not sponsored, but Morning Brew, let's talk about it. The section here is labeled How to Lose Everything in a Week. So let's delve into this real quick. So Sam Bankman-Fried, and I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, but we'll just call him SBF for the moment. Says he's worn many hats. CEO of crypto exchange FTX and crypto trading firm Alameda Research, major political donor and billionaire-style icon who makes Mark Zuckerberg look like Don Draper. He's been described as the next Warren Buffett and touted as crypto's savior. And now, SBF is the accidental poster child for one of crypto's biggest failures. This week, Bankman-Fried lost everything. His $16 billion fortune evaporated, and his crypto companies are gone. The loss happened fast, according to this article. On November 2nd, CoinDesk reported that Alameda Research and FTX were entangled and extremely risk-laden. Online chatter spread that FTX was insolvent and mass withdrawals ensued. In response, SBF assured his Twitter followers that all was fine, that a competitor was merely stirring up rumors. A couple of days later, SBF announced that FTX would be acquired by competitor crypto exchange Binance, but the deal quickly fell through in part because of looming investigations of FTX by the feds. On Wednesday evening, SBF told investors that FTX would go bankrupt without more capital. On Thursday, he announced that Alameda Research would be winding down its trades as he looked to raise money for FTX. The same day, the Wall Street Journal reported that FTX was dipping customer funds to make its own wild bets. It's a wild story even for an industry built on wild stories, and it speaks to the bigger problems in crypto, where fortunes can materialize overnight and disappear just as quickly. I'm pretty sure there's a saying about that somewhere. With little to no regulatory oversight to ward off disaster. When the wonder kind of crypto with a savior complex takes a devastating L, the ripple effect is inevitable. Bitcoin is down to its lowest in the last 2 years. FTT, the native token for FTX, is down more than 97% from its all-time high, which is absolutely insane. Granted, I think it's kind of like looming concerns like this that kept me from ever getting really involved too far into the cryptocurrency industry, to be honest. Back when I was working in um, hospitality, which is not something I've got on my resume because I did not enjoy the experience. I worked in a place where I can tell a lot of the people who were my age and somehow affording the luxury hive style apartment units they were living in were definitely in cryptocurrency. But I also saw that despite them living there, a lot of them were very late on their rent often. And I think that's just because of the incredibly, not incalculable, but like inconsistencies of the cryptocurrency industry. And this article does come, and it's written from Ashwin Rodriguez. But again, if you're subscribed to the Morning Brew morning newsletter, you'll definitely be seeing this week. So yeah, crazy news about crypto and SBF. Good luck to him though. Hopefully he can find ways to kind of hop back up from this, because it sounds like a pretty big hit to take. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I just never got involved in cryptocurrency. Like, I could never really tell how that world would swing, and I guess my instincts have kept me alive, because I'm not sure how you'd be able to get out of that, to be honest. Found a pretty fun little article this morning, also from the Morning Brew. It's coming from Francis Yalaba, that awesome last name that I am hoping that I'm not butchering every single time I read one of his articles for you guys. The title of the article, and it's from the tech section. It's called "An iPhone Update for When You're Stuck in an Avalanche." All right, Apple's latest sexy iPhone update since the Memoji rolled out yesterday in the US and Canada, but it's one that emergency responders say has the potential to save lives. The new feature, Emergency SOS via satellite, will allow iPhone 14 users to send their location and a short message if they find themselves in trouble without cell service. First announced in September, Emergency SOS is made possible by 24 satellites in low Earth orbit. Apple invested $450 million in the company operating those satellites, Globalstar, to support their development. So how does it work? When an iPhone 14 user calls 911 without cell service, they'll receive the option to send an emergency text. After filling out a questionnaire about the nature of their emergency, really? They have to fill out a questionnaire about their emergency? Does that make any sense? They're in an emergency. Do they have the time to fill out a questionnaire? Like, here's the thing. And you hear stories like this all the time. Like, you hear like comedian stories, so they're not really true. But like if I'm gonna call up a dispatcher and try to be like, there's a killer in my house, and I'm hiding in a closet, do you think I'm gonna sit there on the phone and answer a questionnaire about the situation? No, I'm gonna start cussing somebody out if the first response I don't get is, okay, units are on the way. You understand? Fill out a questionnaire about an emergency? That makes no sense. That makes zero sense to me. So after filling out a questionnaire about your emergency situation, because you have the time according to Apple, the user's precise location and medical ID are sent to emergency responders. Well, at least that happens, but I really do hope, for the sake of these Apple 14 users, that the questionnaire really is as simple as, are you in trouble? Because really, like, let's be honest, because emergency situations can be very, very different depending on circumstance and situation. So how many questions does it? I almost need to see a copy or an example of this questionnaire so I can determine just how ridiculous it is. That just sounds insane. Like, what the heck? Okay, so a few things to note. Since the process is different from a regular text or call, sending a message would take minutes. Because emergency. People don't have minutes necessarily to even talk, okay? To work, users need an unobstructed view of the sky. Why does this article mention an avalanche? That's kind of counterintuitive, I would think. So you apparently not only need to answer stupid questions about your emergency, but you have to have an unobstructed view of the sky. So it's more useful for a stuck in a tree surrounded by wolves situation than stuck in a cave surrounded by wolves situation. Well, that's pretty clear there. Apple said the service will be free for at least 2 years. It better be free forever. Question air in an emergency. You have lost your damn mind. Absolutely not. What? Like, for real? A question air, and you have to have an unobstructed view of the sky. And they have the Mr. Shalaba, you had the audacity to put avalanche in the title of this article, knowing full goddamn well that the person receiving these services, and that's if they're alive long enough to get past the questionnaire, has to have an unobstructed view of the sky. Please help me understand how the hell that makes sense, because I'm just not seeing it on my end. I'm really not. I'm having a lot of issues here understanding how that's supposed to make sense. Anyway, okay. Let's hop into some fun little news so I don't get mad at Apple here for a second. So, after nabbing 9 nominations for the upcoming Grammy Awards and most of any artist this year, Beyoncé is now tied with her husband Jay-Z as the musician with the most Grammy nominations in history with 88. Kendrick Lamar, Adele, Brandy Carlisle, Harry Styles, and Future all got at least 6 nominations. So, congratulations, Queen Bee. Very, very happy to you. I'm still stuck on the whole goddamn iPhone 14 BS with this emergency SOS. More like emergency SOL is what it sounds like. It sounds like emergency SOL. Emergency SOS. But you know what? Just for the sake of allowing you to see what I'm talking about, here you go. I'm gonna put the link for that article in the chat here, so it's now in the Podbean chat, and now there you go. It's gonna be in the the last thing I need from you is doesn't like to do that. Well, fine. Okay, not in the YouTube chat because apparently it's too long for the YouTube chat, which makes no sense to me. Like, why would you why? Because, like, do I gotta open my Bitly and give you a Bitly? I mean, I'll give you a Bitly if I gotta. Because, Lord. Isn't it Bitly, right? Bitly is the Mashugana that does the thingy. I'm trying to find, god dang it. Is it not Bitly anymore? I could have sworn it was Bitly. Oh my god, I'm gonna fight somebody here. What's going on? Please. Bitly. There we go. Why am I not? So Bitly wants to try me this morning. More than that idiotic Apple idea was. Okay. Well, that's cute. No one likes you. Stop being like that. Because really, no one likes you like that. Lord, if I didn't have to do things that I feel like should be easily handled by other people, I'd be a much happier person in general. Just saying. So let me go ahead and do this for y'all because I do want you guys to be able to enjoy this particular article here. So let's see here. iPhone 14. Oh, not XOX. SOS. There we go. And copy. That took a lot longer than I anticipated it to. Sorry about that. So here you go. It's in the YouTube chat. But yeah, go ahead and check out that article if you got a moment because I'm very much stuck on how the hell that could have happened, to be very, very honest. Let's see here. looking at some stuff this morning to see what else we could use to kind of brighten our day and help us kind of acquire some better focus. And ooh, help us optimize ourselves in the workflow. Now, a lot of us are going into sales, a lot of us work in sales or some relationship to sales. So I think this one will be pretty good for us this morning, especially when it considers, us being able to make sure that sales are driven well for the company. So there's an article this morning coming from entrepreneur.com, not sponsored, but Entrepreneur. Let's talk about it. This is coming from David Partain. My bad, David Partain. The article is titled, Give Your Employees the 3-Point Strategy They Need to Drive Sales. So let me go ahead and make sure I hop this into the chat first before we get too far into it. That way you guys have it available to you. And now it's going to be both in the Podbean chat and the YouTube chat. So go ahead and check it out there. So let's dive into this article real quick. All right, so what is your value proposition? This is how Mr. Partain starts out this article. A value proposition isn't useless information about your company, products, or services. It's a statement about what outcomes a person or a group can expect when working with your company, right? And kind of going off my earlier part of my conversation this morning, that can sometimes be difficult to remember to mention. Sometimes we can speak on, I'm not sure why I'm having issues this morning. Bear with me here. But yeah, what was I saying? I was saying something important. But yeah, being mindful about how we really sell our services and our abilities can sometimes miss us a little bit. And that's what causes us to undersell. And while I know it's always good sales practice to undersell and overdeliver, underselling too hard can result in not selling at all. So keep that in mind. A company's value proposition is at the core of its business model. It's a promise the organization makes to its customers regarding the value of its products and or services. A value proposition should be simple but powerful and clear. A compelling value proposition strategically examines the factors that influence customer focus and overall business ambition and sets expectations. It serves both your customers and employees by setting up their expectations properly. I'm going to add that word properly. Guiding employees by setting these expectations help ensure they understand your company's standards and gives them something substantial to aspire to in regard to product quality, service, etc. Now, I had to add the word properly there. Recent positions of mine include being in post-sales, so more like really client onboarding and management. So what I found was one of my pain points when it came to working with clients in my particular job was that because the expectations of how the services actually worked were not properly set, it caused a lot of issues or a lot of particular hurdles in me being able to maintain this client as an active account, not only for myself, but for the company. I was also on a team, so, losing a client reflects on the team as well, which I, wanted to make sure I didn't reflect negatively on the team. But, for some more context, so I worked with a company that focuses on building marketing strategies that are centered around gaining organic presences with search engines. And so there's always the need for the salesperson to make sure that in reaching out to these prospective clients and convincing them to hop onto us with a marketing plan, that they're the first ones to mention the realistic expectations that they should go into this with. And then, of course, my job would be, while I'm onboarding them and helping them to set up their campaign, to refresh their memory, not refresh their memory because they've just spoken about it, but to, revisit the expectations and expand on why those expectations are the way they are. But oftentimes I would get a client, brand new client, who just spent X amount of money on a campaign who wasn't given those proper expectations. And so when I would review those with them during this onboarding process, they'd be like, what? They'd freak out because that conversation, which should be handled by the salesperson, was not being handled. And, at this point, they've already spent money. And so not only is it suddenly on me to try to keep them, despite the fact that a certain conversation was not had with them, but now I got to put like double the effort into it because, again, my job is to onboard and to expand upon conversations they should have already had, not to have the first conversation with them, right? So yeah, that's why I wanted to add properly, set expectations properly. Because if you don't do that, it's going to cause a whole lot of other issues for really the entire rest of the time you've got a client. And that doesn't work for anybody, especially the salesperson, and and I say that because most of the time their revenue is based on commission, and if you're not keeping a client, then that doesn't happen. So you got to make sure you do that. I know it sucks sometimes to set up reasonable expectations, but that's part of the job. And you know what? There were onboarding times where I, trusting, stupidly maybe, that the salesperson did set those expectations and just happened to not touch on them during the onboarding call. And then a couple weeks into their campaign, or waiting for their campaign to officially be built out and launched, and I'd have a moment where I'd have to remind them that they're on this kind of plan, and they'd freak out because the salesperson, I realized in that moment, didn't have that conversation. And that just doesn't work. You have to set those expectations, especially if you're the salesperson. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for a hard L, and that's not going to work. You're going to feel it hard, because post-sales clients, retention, we're not based on commission, or the ones I've been in, commission for me doesn't come from that. Commission for me is different. Commission for me is not based on each singular client that I retain or that I lose. It's based on meeting certain thresholds. But for a salesperson, each and every single client, that affects commission. So it's like, come on. You gotta keep those things in mind. You gotta have those conversations. Again, otherwise you're setting yourself up for a pretty big L. So, and plus you want to make it easy for the people that you are sending these accounts to for management, planning, and coordination. You've got to set up the stage to where everything's gonna flow right. Yeah, sorry, that went on a bit of a tangent there, but I'm pretty passionate about making sure those expectations are properly set because it affects a lot of things. Anyway, so Partain goes on to mention your value proposition guides your strategy. A value proposition is a critical component of your strategy rather than just a feature of your marketing plan. It should provide 3 critical benefits. The first is functional benefits. The second is productive attribute benefits. And the third is personal benefits. And just in case I haven't already, let me go ahead. Oh, no, I already gave it to you. Cool. I thought I didn't share the link to it. So Partain says the most successful value propositions will offer the customer all 3 types of benefits at once. It's a promise that you plan to offer the buyer a positive experience with a great product or service. It convinces the buyer your product is the best choice for them and approximately capitalizes on how the buyer feels. For employees, an effective value proposition gives them a better sense of what marketing strategies will be the most effective, right? So let's break those down real quick. So a functional benefit is basically how the product or the service performs. The benefit ties your offer to the outcome the customer wants. So the position I was working in, they're looking to acquire a strong organic presence on a search engine so that when people are looking even vaguely for services similar to them, they are highly likely to come across their business because they're going to be ranking high on like Google. So that's something you want to be able to convey to the customer, to the client. Product attribute benefit. This is what makes your product stand out. So where I was, one of those elements for them was that you're going to get constant access to a singular person who's going to be the person who will act as your main point of contact. So, a lot of times you go to marketing companies and you have to go through like main phone lines, and hopefully you'll end up talking to a person who will hopefully be able to quickly ascertain your campaign and understand where you're at at that point in your services. But where I was, the promise of the company that I was working with was that you get a person. Like, you have one person, they're going to know your name, you're going to know their name, you're going to have this relationship, and that's going to allow you to have this reliable contact for any questions you have, any concerns you have, or just to get updates or anything you need something updated on the campaign. You know the name of the person you're going to call. It's this really good opportunity to develop a really good rapport. And then the third personal benefit is kind of the same thing in that particular sense. You've got this emotional connection tied to the purchase or to the campaign. So you have this dedicated specialist to help oversee the entire process and who will be your main point of contact for the entirety of your time with the company. Partain goes on to mention a strategy should have real benefits. Value propositions examine factors that influence a range of areas, such as customer focus or overall business ambition. So rather than seeing them as a feature for your marketing plan, develop the value proposition in a strategic core for all your operation models, whether or not it's decision making, finance, and even resource prioritization. Once you have a clear operational strategy based on your value proposition, it will provide direction for all the interactions your employees have with your customers. It tells your sales representatives exactly who the target market is, and what that audience wants to achieve, and what's most important for the audience to know about your product or service. So go ahead and check out the rest of that article in the chat. I already shared it for you guys. Again, it's coming from entrepreneur.com, written by David Partain. So go ahead and give that a look. I think it's really, really good advice for those of us who are kind of in that sales or post-sales environment. Very important thing for us to keep in mind, I believe. Let's see here. So let's go ahead and hop into some submissions this morning. And if you've ever had any question on how you can go about sharing your story for the show, for discussion, there are two ways for you to do just that. You can hop into Reddit. There is a community for us called Talk Office Gossip. That's a great way for you to go ahead and get your story into the show. Or you can head on over to casualbabble.com. There is a page called Submit Your Story, and you can submit your story there. And of course, my admin will let you know on both platforms when your submission will be used for the show. And if for any reason they are not used in the show, usually just because of time-wise, then they will be included in the advice column section of the Casual Babble newsletter. Be sure to sign up for that and be on the mailing list for that. The sign-up form is on the homepage of casualbabble.com, right below the main picture there on the homepage. The section is labeled Sign Up and Keep Up, name, email address. There you go. And that way you're on the mailing list and you can keep up with everything fun and crazy that's going on here at Casual Babble. So that was really stupid. I'm sorry. So let's hop into this first submission. So it's titled here, Am I Getting Fired, or is this a genuine opportunity to improve? I love the optimism here. I really do. Let's delve into it. So I've been at this company for over a year now, and I am an employee. Direct report to a supervisor. For the first 10 months, I was under a supervisor who no longer works for the company. He was very uninvolved in my career advancement and never checked in, but I could always sense that he wasn't very fond of me. I now have a new supervisor who I've been under for about 2 months now, and things are going good to my knowledge. I had meetings with my new supervisor and asked if my performance was good, and she stated no problems. I even had a meeting with my manager for a separate reason and asked if there were any ways to improve my performance, and she said she was pleased with my performance. The following day, after my meeting with my manager, I got called into a meeting with my supervisor, manager, and HR. Well, that's never good. They presented a written warning to me stating some mistakes I'd made while on the job, which is fair, but also several other minor issues that I was never aware were issues, like talking too much on the bench, being on the phone too much, etc. They said that if these issues weren't addressed within 30 days, then we reevaluate and meet again. I could be fired. I was never aware that these issues were even a thing, so I apologized and said I would be more mindful of these issues. Days later, my supervisor met with me again for a regular scheduled meeting, and she apologized for the written warning meeting. She said that my manager was only involved because she's a newer supervisor and doesn't know the process of written warnings. She also said that it was reassuring to see my surprised reaction to the stated problems because she said most of these issues were older and were just never addressed by my uninvolvement. Uninvolved older supervisor, and had to bring them up because they were documented. So they were documented, but the previous supervisor, who was not very involved at all, never brought them up. I expressed my willingness to change and do whatever for the company, and also expressed my fear of the company using this as a nice way to let me know I'm getting fired. She reassured me that it wasn't the case. So I will go forward and do better in the complaints they listed, but I am curious how I should perceive the situation. I'm getting fired and they're giving me a heads up. Am I getting fired based on this heads up, or is this genuinely a chance to do better of issues I wasn't aware on? Well, I think you kind of stated it there in the story background. You know, you mentioned that you had your first supervisor who was not involved, but clearly they decided to document these, what were minor issues, and I think what still are minor issues really, but he never shared them, never had a meeting with you to coordinate them and just make sure that they were on your radar and to provide you that opportunity to address those and amend those behaviors earlier on. But your newer supervisor being more involved, and again, you mentioned that, she told you that she has zero issues with your performance because you're doing good. So I think really it's just an opportunity to improve. I think it's just the fact that they were such older write-ups, which really is more a reflection of the person who no longer works with the company. Really, it's not so much a reflection of you, because I mean, if you're not aware that something minor you're doing is technically something that is not preferred in performance, but it's never brought to your attention, and you're never provided the opportunity to improve, that's not necessarily your fault, right? So for instance, one of the things I've gotten in trouble for in the past, and it was when I was in hospitality, was that I was on social media a lot. Well, the position was super simple and I was done with my responsibilities pretty quick. So in those sometimes 2-hour time frames where I'm not being called upon by a resident to assist them with something, and so that I didn't get way too bored, I'd probably have TikTok going or something, and I would just try to occupy my attention when there was nothing else to do. And eventually it was brought to my attention, but it wasn't brought to my attention super quick. So it's like, okay, that's fine, whatever. But in this case, again, you mentioned it was an older write-up. So that, again, I think that's more, says more towards like what, or how your previous supervisor accounted for themselves, not so much on you. So I really would just take this as an overall opportunity to just don't do those things anymore, pretty simply. Again, they didn't tell you that they're definitely going to fire you. They're just, telling you, here's your time frame to amend these tiny non-preferred behaviors. And if you happen to not be able to address those things in 30 days, which is a long time frame, then they'll revisit. And if they have to revisit, then maybe at that point you might be kind of facing termination. But just don't do those things anymore. I think it's pretty straightforward. Let's see. Oh, I love this question here. Next submission is labeled, "How do you deal with annoying coworkers?" I have my thoughts, but let's get your situation first before I comment on that. Okay, so let me tell you a story. I got a new job 2 months ago in IT. Small office with like 10 people in my department. This girl, Kara, ooh, you dropping names. I like you. Kara, who was training me, the first thing she said was, "This is my husband, Hadouken." Okay. I love the reference. Every minute she gets, she will not stop talking about her husband. My inner thoughts think she's letting me know she's married, so I don't hit on her. Okay. Maybe, but doubt I'm not trying. Maybe, but doubt it. I'm not trying to hit on her, and hopefully I don't come off that way. I am decent looking, not trying to toot my own horn. After a week, I'm done training, and at the time I heard the word husband like 50 times. Now I am sitting on the other side of her, and we can't see each other unless we turn around. I thought the husband thing was going to go away, but nope. Again, every day we are always chatting work-related questions, and husband sneaks into the conversation. It's very annoying. Also, my birthday was last month, and everyone at work signs a card for that person. She signs my card with "Have a wonderful birthday, friend, Kara and Hadouken." Like, what? WTF? He doesn't even work here or even know me, and she's signing his name. What does that even do? What does that mean? How do I stop this? Is she even really married to this person? Is legitimately my question. I mean, the fact that it's signed as a couple, I mean, it's not all that weird, but I kind of get it how it's weird for your situation. I don't know. To me, when I feel like someone has to like constantly restate something like, "Oh, I'm married. Oh, I have a boyfriend or a significant other. Oh, I have this. Oh, I have that." It's like, I wonder if they're coming from a place where like maybe she's coming from a place where she didn't think she'd ever have that. And maybe the fact that she does have this husband with a pretty cool name has her overjoyed. I get that. But yeah, I can kind of get how it's weird. To be honest, I think I would just ignore it. Even though, during your training week, you heard the word husband like 50 times, which I understand that's also pretty annoying, to be very honest. But yeah, I mean, I just, it's either that she's just overjoyed to have this person in their life, which is, and that's cute and everything. Or I don't know. I don't know what other reasons she'd have to constantly mention it and then kind of go, and weirdly so far as to sign a birthday card with her husband's name, unless she just happens to talk about you nonstop when she's not at work, which would be, I guess, kind of weird. Yeah. Just roll with it. Hopefully it dies down for you. I hope it does. Otherwise, it's just some people are annoying. Bare minimum answers. Some people are just annoying. Yeah, that's my thought on that particular situation there. One more this morning. This last submission is titled "Wanting to Leave a Job Soon Due to Work-Life Balance." Hello, wanted to ask a general question since I am rethinking my employer choice at the moment. I work a lot of hours and do not enjoy my current work-life balance in my engineering field. I've only worked at this company for 6 months and am considering leaving soon. Should I try to actively start looking for jobs and leave as soon as I find one, or stay up until a year and then leave? Just wanted some insight from kind of an HR perspective due to other employers probably wondering why I left so quickly, which is very fair. Also, I think I should leave ASAP. What are some ways I can explain why I left early for work-life balance instead of HR thinking I'm not a good employee? So it's going to be hard to, I think, provide the reason of work-life balance as your base reason for leaving. Granted, a lot of employers are these days wanting to offer that work-life balance, so it's not like it's a totally unrespectable thing. But again, you kind of mentioned it there. Being there only 6 months, it's definitely uh what was I saying? When employers do see like there's a kind of a short time span for a previous job, that can raise a question, and they might ask the question. It might be that the way you go about mentioning that, if you go about looking for a new position and they inquire about it, you could just say, look, it's a bit of a culture clash there. You don't necessarily, it doesn't sound like you have anything disparaging to say about the work environment aside from you just not being able to balance out life and work. So I would just say, if anything, just say there was a bit of a culture clash there. You loved the work, but you weren't being, say something to the effect of, you love the work, that's what drew you in initially, but you found that you were not allowed to disengage from work to allow yourself the kind of resting time you need to be able to consistently operate to the best of your ability and be very efficient. That's the angle I would take with it. Otherwise, yeah, I would just say, also my question would be, are you seeing that you're working all these hours due to kind of an intro period where they just kind of want to see your capability in working at certain times, or on certain kind of needs to be available bases. But yeah, otherwise that's the angle I would go for. If you're going to go for trying to shift yourself into a new environment. So for instance, one of my positions as a communications associate, I was working in the commercial real estate sphere. And I left the company I was with for, I think, after 7 months. So from like July to like April. For 1 second. August, September, October, November, December, March, April. So 9 months. I was with this company, and I left because and I told anyone who inquired about this, because I was still employed when I was looking into these new positions, and what I said essentially was just that, great team. I've got great chemistry with the people. I love the work. I'm being called on in ways that I like to be called on. But the reason I left this particular company was just that their structure for development and growth, and for really having that kind of livable wage, was not in what I gauged was a feasible time frame. So essentially, I was looking to move into a position to start from where I left off, and that had a much kind of quicker time frame in how one would be able to elevate themselves and really see that career development happen in a more timely fashion. So yeah, I would say, if anything, just go the angle of, I love the work, but I do need to find an opportunity to be able to balance out my work, which I'm very efficient at, with my ability to disengage, recharge, and then go back into work so that I can operate efficiently. If anything, and just go with that particular angle. Because you always want to try to angle your reasons in basing it out of, you like the work, but you're looking for just another positive element that the current environment just does not seem to be able to offer. And geared in the sense of, you're looking to really develop and go further, and a lot of employers like that. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning on Casual Babble. I super appreciate it. And again, I do want to let you know that ooh, 1 second, we had someone hop into the chat for popping real quick regarding the employer who was obsessed about talking about her husband. So had someone called Mr. Hoppin saying that she's hoping that the guy would hit on her so she can feel better about herself and have something to talk about. You know what? I totally see that, mister. Thank you for helping in the chat and providing that. I was thinking about a reason along the lines of that, but I wasn't quite sure, because otherwise it just is talking about her husband as much as she didn't seem to make sense. But yeah, I can totally see that being the reason. She just wanted someone to have a reason to hit on her. Like if she was already taken, maybe the coworker would find that like a draw, something like that, which is weird, but it happens. I've seen it happen. But I agree. Thank you for that thought, mister. Really appreciate it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me this morning on Casual Babble. Really appreciate it. We will hop back into the situation on Friday for our end of the week discussion. Again, congratulations on making it to Wednesday. It's not always easy, but you made it to Wednesday, so congratulations. I'm proud of you. And be sure to follow me on the socials. All my usernames on socials are BC Babbles. I'm most active on TikTok, so go ahead and give me a follow there. If not, on Instagram. And again, if you want to be receiving that newsletter from Casual Babble, be sure to go to casualbabble.com. Link is in the chat, and sign up on that form, which is on the home page right below the main picture. The section there